Hello, and welcome to Algebra, Unit 3, Concept 2, Lesson 5. Today, scholars will factor polynomials in the form of x squared plus bx plus c. So, just something to think about. I want you to pause the video, and I want you to go through and fill in these tables in your notes. So, first, you want you to find two numbers that multiply to 15 and add to 8. Then I want you to find two numbers that multiply to 15 and add to negative 16. Two numbers that multiply to negative 15 and add to negative 2. And finally, numbers that multiply to negative 15 and add to negative 14. Go ahead and pause the video now. Okay, hopefully you were able to spend a few minutes and get those numbers. So if you look here, you'll see I have a positive 3 and positive 5, multiply to 15 and add to 8. Over here, negative 15 times negative 1, because a negative times a negative gives you a positive. They multiply to 15 and they add to negative 16. Down here, you'll see that multiplying to get to negative 15 to add to negative 2, I've got negative 5 and positive 3. You see I tried the other way first, and that was wrong, so I just didn't put the check mark. And finally, multiplying to negative 15 and adding negative 14, I have negative 15 and positive 1. So, what happens when we multiply binomials? And now I'm going to connect what we just did to this. So, when I multiply x plus 3 times x plus 2, I get x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 6, which combines to x squared plus 5x plus 6. You'll notice the 5 is the sum of those two numbers, and the 6 is their product. So we can use this to help us factor these binomials. So I need to look for numbers that add to 5 and multiply to 6. Remember, we call this B and we call this C. So we want numbers that add to B and multiply to C. So let's try that. Here, first of all, notice that I have B is less than 0 and C is more than 0. So I have two numbers. I need to find two numbers that add to negative 11 and multiply to 18. First thing I notice, since this C is positive and B is negative, that means both of my factors must be negative. So both of my factors, the two things I'm adding together, must be negative, because I multiply to a positive number and add to a negative number. So let's start thinking about numbers that multiply to 18. First thing I think of is, let's see, we've got negative 6 times negative 3. Well, that multiplies to 18 but does not add to 11. So negative 2 times negative 9. Well, that multiplies to 18 and adds negative 11. Now that I know this, I simply am going to use those as part of my factor. So this is x minus 2 times x minus 9. And if you multiply that out, you'll see that you get x squared minus 11x plus 18. All we did was find the numbers that add to B and multiply to C. Let's try another one. What happens if C is less than 0? So if my C is negative, that means my two factors, one factor is positive and one factor is negative. Because the only way to multiply two numbers to get a negative answer is if one is positive and one is negative. So I need numbers that add to 5 and multiply to negative 6. So think about numbers that multiply to negative 6. Let's see. Negative 3 and positive 2. They multiply to negative 6, but they do not add to 5. Okay, so let's try that the other way. Negative 2 and positive 3. Again, multiply to 6, but do not add to 5. So let's try negative 1 and 6 Again, multiply to negative 6, but do add to 5. Do add to 5. There you go. So those are my factors. So now, again, I'm just writing x minus 1 and x plus 6. Not too bad. That's all we're doing is finding the numbers. You can just sit there and make a list like I did. So what if I have two variables? So this looks pretty similar, except instead of having just x plus 2 and x plus 4, you notice these would be those, we have this extra y here and the y squared here. So it factors the same way. You need numbers that multiply to c and add to b, but you're just going to add the y as part of your factoring. Okay, so each trinomial has the form of x squared plus b times xy plus c times y squared will give us these factors. Okay, so last thing, why are we factoring? Who cares? Why do we factor these? So here's something to think about. If I have two factors, two numbers that multiply together, and their product is 0, what do I know about those factors? Sorry, it should be factors. What do I know about those factors? Well, in order to have two numbers multiply and get 0, one must be 0. It's the only way to have two numbers multiply together and get 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 8 times 0 is 0. Doesn't matter what we do, we have to have a 0. There's no other way to get 0 as our product. So let's look at this. What if I have this? I have x squared minus 15x plus 50 equals 0. Let's find x. So the first thing we're going to do is factor this. Okay? So I need two numbers that add to negative 15 and multiply to 50. So those numbers are going to be negative 5 and negative 10. So I have x minus 5 times x minus 10 equals 0. Now, since we know that one of these must be equal to 0, I'm just going to set each of them equal to 0. So I have x minus 5 equals 0. And I have x minus 10 equals 0. And I'm going to solve each of these. And these are pretty easy equations to solve. X minus 5 equals 0. X is 5. And x minus 10 equals 0. X is 10. We just add the number to both sides. So then the solution here is x is 5 or 10. If I put 5 or 10 into the equation as x, I will get back a 0, and you can check that out. So that is why we do this factoring, is so that we can solve these problems. So go ahead on to your classwork. If you have any struggles with them, just let me know. You do have to complete 3 from each section. There's 3 parts. You must complete 3 from each section. Okay, I will see you all in class.